Before you turn 70, declutter these 6 household items for a simpler, happier life. As we approach the threshold of 70, life begins to shift into an entirely new chapter. This is no longer a time for accumulating more material possessions, but a moment for letting go, reorganizing, and living more slowly, more mindfully. The passing years leave behind not only the marks of time, but also a treasure trove of memories, lessons, experiences, and belongings that have become part of daily life. However, not everything in our home contributes to peace and comfort. Some things were once necessary, once a source of pride or symbols of memorable life stages, but over time they become excessive, outdated, or even burdensome. When a living space is overwhelmed with items that no longer hold meaning, the spirit can also feel suffocated by clutter and an invisible weight. Decluttering is not just a physical task, it's an act of mental and emotional purification. Every item we choose to keep or let go is a step toward lightness, freedom, and tranquility. When we learn to release what is no longer needed, we make room for new, positive, and meaningful things to enter our lives. Seniors often hold on to keepsakes, outdated items, or things saved just in case. But in reality, most of those things are rarely used. Instead, they take up space, collect dust, and sometimes become obstacles in daily life. A clean, open, and organized living space not only supports physical health but also plays a crucial role in mental clarity and emotional peace. Some objects carry only material value, yet over time, become tied to feelings and memories. It might be an old, worn-out sofa, an oversized cabinet that no longer fits the home, clothes that no longer fit, or kitchen items untouched for years. Letting go of them can be difficult. It may feel like cutting ties with the past. But that is where true inner growth begins, when we realize that the real value of memories lies not in the items themselves, but in the experiences we've lived and the emotions kept safely in our hearts. Start with small changes. Every act of tidying up is an opportunity to reflect, a moment to ask yourself what still matters. It's not about giving up. It's about choosing what serves you better. When you enter a room that is no longer cluttered, where everything has a reason to be there, you'll feel a sense of calm radiating from your surroundings deep into your soul. No one can turn back time, but everyone can choose to live the rest of their life more fully by being selective. As we grow older, keeping only what truly brings us joy and comfort becomes an art of living, a way to honor ourselves and the precious time ahead. A simple living space is the foundation for a light heart, an open mind, and more meaningful days to come. Walking into a quiet home in the early morning, when the first rays of sunlight gently stream through the window, one can easily feel the deep connection between the environment and one's mood. A tidy room can soothe tangled thoughts, while clutter can weigh down the mind with fatigue and heaviness. The older we get, the more simplicity becomes a form of emotional comfort. We don't need luxury or extravagance, just everything in its place, enough to use and creating a sense of warmth. For many seniors, decluttering can feel like confronting a summary of their life. Each item tells a story, represents a phase, holds a memory. But life continues to move forward, and holding on to too many old belongings can unknowingly hinder that natural movement. On the other hand, letting go of unnecessary things brings an oddly liberating feeling, as if a long-carried invisible burden has finally been lifted. Decluttering is also a chance to reassess personal values. In truth, many things in the house no longer reflect our current lifestyle or future aspirations. It could be gifts received years ago but never used, or items bought with the intention of using someday. A day that never comes. Holding on to such things is making space for procrastination and waste. But when we carefully choose to keep only what's truly needed, we are actively taking charge of our own lives. Many people have shared how they felt reborn after a major round of cleaning. It's the feeling of being refreshed, of starting over in a subtle yet conscious way. Turning 70 doesn't mean keeping up with the fast pace of life. Instead, life settles into a deeper rhythm, where even small actions can bring peace and joy. During the process, there may be emotional moments. An old photograph may bring back memories of loved ones who've passed. A childhood toy belonging to a grandchild might bring a lump to your throat. A piece of clothing tied to a special event may stir the heart. These memories can make it hard to let go, but remember, the most precious things are not the objects themselves, but the feelings they once held. No physical item can truly contain the depth of genuine emotion like the experiences you carry within your heart and mind. Letting go is not always easy, but it is always the doorway to freedom. An empty room can become a meditation space, a reading nook, or simply a peaceful corner to sit and watch the rain fall outside the window. When you are no longer surrounded by excess, you'll begin to notice the space for things that truly matter: your health, your connection with loved ones, and quiet, peaceful moments. Simplicity also helps seniors feel more in control. Finding things becomes easier, frequently used items are more accessible, and the risk of tripping or injury in daily activities is reduced. A tidy home is a gift for both body and mind. It promotes mental clarity, supports physical well-being, and lifts the spirit. Decluttering is also a way to express gratitude. When you carefully clean each item, deciding whether to keep or part with it, you're essentially saying thank you for its presence during a certain chapter of your life. You can choose to pass along items still in good condition to others, allowing them to bring joy to someone new instead of fading away with time. Minimalism doesn't mean lack. It means knowing what's enough, keeping only what truly serves your life now and into the future, and letting go of anything that has become a burden. It is a wise and mindful way of living, an awakening that older adults can embrace to move into the later stages of life with peace and contentment. Turning 70 is not an ending. It's a new beginning for a gentler, more meaningful way of living. A spacious, uncluttered home not only provides comfort but nourishes the spirit, allowing seniors to feel free, unbound by material things. And when the inner world is no longer tangled in clutter, better things can find their way in. Looking back on life's journey, many people realize that the most precious things are not those we can touch, but the experiences, the moments of love, and the lasting relationships we've had. These do not need to be preserved in material form, because they are already etched deeply in our hearts. That's why decluttering is not merely about discarding items. It is a way of freeing the spirit, helping us live more clearly and fully in the present. Life after 70 calls for tranquility, for spaces where the soul can breathe and rest after a long road filled with changes. A peaceful living environment is a well-deserved gift for the remaining years, a place where every item has meaning, where there is no longer the burden of hoarding, where everything exists to serve the peace and happiness of its owner. Decluttering is also a journey of rediscovering one's self-worth. When we choose to keep the things we love, a comfortable armchair, a ceramic teacup used every afternoon, or a well-worn book read countless times, we are affirming what truly brings us joy. In a world full of noise and choices, returning to simplicity brings the deepest sense of fulfillment. Many people have said that after decluttering, they felt as if they had shed a heavy shell, as if their living space could finally breathe again. Old curtains are replaced, neglected corners are cleaned, natural light flows in, and the home suddenly feels warmer and more welcoming. No more clutter blocking the light or the flow of positive energy. Each time they step into a clean, bright room, they feel calmer, lighter, and more at peace. Some even notice that once their home is tidy, they begin to adopt other healthy habits, eating more regularly, doing light morning exercises, meditating before bed, and maintaining positive social connections. Decluttering becomes a catalyst that kickstarts a journey of holistic self-care, both physically and mentally. No one is immune to the fear of time passing, but when life is reorganized with intention, older adults no longer feel like passive bystanders in the flow of time. Instead, they feel empowered. Every choice, every item they keep is the result of careful thought. Life is no longer something that just happens to them but something they actively shape. Interestingly, many people over 70 become more creative than ever once they are no longer burdened by old belongings. They begin painting, journaling, gardening, or simply sitting quietly to watch the sunrise each morning, things they may have missed before due to being too busy or overwhelmed by clutter. The freed-up space becomes fertile ground for rekindled passions or the discovery of new ones. A particularly important aspect of decluttering before turning 70 is preparing for the future. No one likes to think about the end, but the truth is that everyone needs a plan for their final years. When the home is organized and neat, it's easier for children and grandchildren to assist their elderly parents. Seniors themselves also feel more independent and in control. There's no longer a sense of dependence on others for simple tasks like finding a notebook, grabbing a warm coat, or packing for a short trip. It is truly a blessing to be able to live each day with gratitude and simplicity. A cup of hot tea by the window, soft music on a fall afternoon, a kind word from a loved one. These become clearer and more profound when the mind is no longer cluttered with material distractions. Decluttering becomes a symbol of awakening, living true to oneself for genuine values, not for hoarding habits or imposed social standards. When a home is no longer filled with unnecessary belongings, the soul seems to have more space for peace and serenity. Many who have lived for years in cramped, cluttered environments share that they often felt exhausted, not because of work or age, but because their living space constantly put their minds under stress. Only when they actually began to declutter did they realize the power of simplicity, something seemingly small, yet capable of transforming their entire outlook on life. A tidy and organized home reflects a calm inner state. People often say you can understand a person's inner world by looking at their room. If the living space is quiet and gentle, it often corresponds to a clear mind, free from being bound by the past or anxious about the future. It represents the present, the only moment we truly own, and decluttering is a wonderful way to fully live in that present. A simple living space also helps people reconnect with the beauty of little things. A chair by the window becomes the perfect place to read each afternoon. A small corner in the living room turns into a relaxing spot to brew tea, play soft classical music, and let your thoughts wander. In a world no longer filled with material noise, the sounds of our inner life become clearer than ever. People begin to hear their own hearts, understand their true needs, and rediscover values long forgotten. Growing old doesn't mean the spirit slows down. On the contrary, this is the stage of life where people can blossom in a deeper way, like a late-blooming flower that is vibrant, elegant, and refined. Taking the initiative to declutter is also a form of self-mastery, not letting things take over randomly, but instead choosing, preserving, and moving toward what truly brings happiness. Living in a clean, minimalist space also reduces the invisible burden of having to take care of everything. Older adults often don't have the energy to constantly clean large spaces full of items. Streamlining possessions not only lightens the physical load but also brings mental relief, because when you look around, everything feels manageable. No longer does one feel overwhelmed by material things. Another benefit of decluttering is clarity of thought. When the mind is no longer distracted by excess items, it becomes sharper. Many people who felt confused, forgetful, or unfocused realized that much of it came from living in an unsuitable environment. A tidy, airy room can bring a sense of deep breathing, clearer thinking, and greater mindfulness in everyday life. Decluttering also becomes a moment of self-conversation. As you pick up each item and ask, "Do I still need this?" you are truly confronting yourself. These questions may seem simple, but they hold the key to inner awareness. You begin to understand what brings you joy, what wears you out, what it's time to let go of. Every item discarded is a brave decision, a clear step toward freedom. As material life becomes lighter, people naturally turn inward, and that's one of the most beautiful things about aging. No longer preoccupied with chasing after superficial things, people find time to reflect, to acknowledge their accomplishments, to be grateful for what they have, and to cherish every small moment of the present. A quiet afternoon on the porch can become a profound experience, simply because nothing is pulling the mind away. In a home that has been cleansed, even the air feels lighter, the light spreads more evenly, and people feel more energized. Movement becomes easier and safer, something extremely important for older adults. There are no longer dangerous obstacles or dusty, forgotten corners. The living environment becomes an ally of health, rather than a hidden threat. Decluttering is not just about rearranging belongings. It is also a method of letting go of memories that no longer serve the present. There are items that, each time we see them, bring back old sadness, times of regret, or memories that weigh heavily on the heart. Keeping such items in the house is like holding on to unhealed wounds, allowing them to silently influence our mood every day. Decluttering, therefore, is also an act of healing. No one can change the past, but everyone can choose how to move forward in the present. When a person decides to keep only items that hold positive meaning, they are choosing to live in a space filled with hope and gratitude, rather than being tied down by things that are no longer appropriate. This is especially important in later life, when every passing day is a precious part of the remaining journey, and no one wants to waste time on things that no longer bring joy. Letting go, whether it's an old shirt or a greeting card from years past, is sometimes difficult, but ultimately brings a profound sense of relief. People begin to realize that holding on to too much prevents them from welcoming the new. When the home is refreshed, positive energy finds its way in. When excess items are removed, bad habits, outdated thinking, and nameless worries tend to fade away as well. A simplified living space also allows older adults to live more slowly, in a positive way. They no longer have to rush to clean, organize, or search for items in a maze of clutter. Instead, they have time to sit down, take a deep breath, look out the window, and feel the breeze. They can spend a morning just listening to birdsong, an afternoon watching the rain fall, or a quiet evening reflecting on times gone by. Each small moment becomes more precious, more meaningful, like sparkling drops of water coming together to form a clear stream that nourishes the soul. Especially in today's world, where people are overwhelmed by technology, advertising, and overconsumption, choosing to live simply is a bold act. Seniors are choosing to live with less, but with more quality. They no longer chase trends, but instead listen to themselves. They have nothing to prove to the world. They simply want to live in alignment with the profound values they've gathered over a lifetime. And in that simplicity lies a unique beauty, the beauty of experience, of inner depth, and of a quiet strength. Decluttering is also an opportunity for older adults to truly prepare for a new chapter. Lighter, freer. Many have shared that after tidying up they felt reborn, as if a new door had opened with more possibilities. Some began writing memoirs, others took up photography or painting, or simply reconnected with nature, things they once loved but had forgotten in the busyness of life. When no longer surrounded by material excess, the heart awakens once more. In heartfelt conversations, many elderly men and women have said, "Honestly, I don't need much. Just a soft bed, a small dining table big enough for a few loved ones, and a comfy chair to sit and watch the sunset." These aren't just words, but realizations after a lifetime of accumulating, storing, and then discovering that it's the simplest things that bring the deepest sense of fulfillment. A room that is simple but filled with sunlight, a small kitchen that is tidy and cozy, that's enough to make life feel truly worth living. Decluttering also opens the door to stronger connections with children and grandchildren. When elders share the stories behind each item, the younger generation not only learns more about their parents and grandparents, but also gains valuable life lessons. The act of deciding together what to keep, donate, or discard becomes a moment of generational bonding, a chance to tell stories, pass on family values, and create shared memories. It's no longer a tedious chore, but a deeply emotional and meaningful experience. After decluttering, not only does the living space become cleaner and more spacious, but the soul also feels renewed. The invisible burdens and worries accumulated over the years suddenly feel lighter. Older adults begin to breathe more easily, not only in the literal sense due to a tidier home, but also figuratively, because they have let go of part of the weight of the past. When the living space is simplified, people find themselves with more time and attention to reconnect with nature. They open their windows more often to welcome sunlight and fresh air. They become more attuned to the morning birdsong, the rustling of leaves in the afternoon, and the subtle fragrance of the earth after rain. Nature, once hidden behind piles of clutter, returns as a gentle, slow, and healing companion. Many elderly individuals, after decluttering, decide to create a small garden, perhaps just a few potted plants on the balcony, some flower beds around the porch, or a jar of aquatic plants in the living room. They begin to spend their mornings watering plants, observing the changes in every leaf and bud. This is not just an elegant pastime, it becomes a form of mental healing. Plants grow quietly, patiently, reminding us that healing also takes time and tenderness. Following the decluttering process, people become more sensitive to beauty. They start to enjoy a slow piece of music more deeply, listening to the lyrics with renewed empathy. They revisit old books that were once abandoned due to busyness or fatigue. They start writing in journals again, or simply jot down a few reflections each night before bed, a small habit that nourishes the inner self. All of this signifies a return inward, a slowing down, and a reconnection with the authentic self. Purifying the living space also creates an environment for practicing gratitude, one of the most essential ingredients for happiness. When no longer driven by the desire to own or hoard, people begin to realize that they already have enough. A simple but clean outfit, a modest yet nutritious meal, a shared laugh with children or grandchildren, these all become treasures. Gratitude makes the soul feel whole, and life becomes more meaningful than ever before. Decluttering no longer feels like a task but becomes a ritual, a way to remind oneself, I am alive, I am present, and I have the right to choose the life I want. Each time we reorganize a drawer, clean a corner of the house, or simply open the window to let the sunlight in, it is also a moment of tending to the soul. A small act, when repeated with mindfulness, can create profound transformation. For the elderly, maintaining a simple and tidy living space is also a way of showing self-respect. They do not live passively or let things fall into disarray. They choose to live consciously, keeping their home and themselves ready to welcome the good things in life. There is no need for perfection or to meet any external standard, just the most peaceful, authentic version of themselves. And that is enough to make life feel lighter and more joyful each day. Decluttering also helps to break the feeling of loneliness, a common challenge in old age. When no longer surrounded by lifeless objects that make a space feel cold, people find it easier to connect with loved ones, with neighbors, and even with themselves. A warm, tidy, and well-lit room naturally invites others in, fostering close and sincere relationships. People often say, to clean your house, you must first clean your heart. But in truth, sometimes all it takes is starting with cleaning the house. The rest will follow naturally. Once the surrounding environment has changed, the heart begins to change too. A bright, fragrant home filled with gentle music and warm sunlight can free the soul from deeply rooted negative emotions. And it is in that very space that new life begins to blossom. Life, after all, is not measured by the number of years we live, but by the quality of each moment we experience. Before turning 70, decluttering is not merely a physical act of tidying up your living space. It is a conscious effort to renew the soul, cleanse the inner self, and open the door to a new, peaceful chapter in the journey ahead. Simplicity does not mean deprivation. On the contrary, it helps us recognize what is truly essential and what we once thought was important but, in reality, only weighed us down. In a world that constantly urges people to accumulate more, letting go becomes a true act of courage. Believe that you deserve a life of peace and lightness, free from the bindings of the past, free from the burden of meaningless possessions. Ask yourself, what truly brings me joy at this moment? What do I want to see each morning when I wake up? What do I want to keep with me to accompany me in the years to come? Every item you let go of, every corner of the home you refresh, every negative thought you release. Each of these is a first step bringing you closer to a life that is simple, yet deeply fulfilling. It's a life where light filters through the window, birds sing on the porch, there's a warm cup of tea, gentle breaths, and profound gratitude for every small thing that remains. No one can decide how you should live after 70. But you absolutely can choose a way of living that brings you more peace, ease, and happiness. Starting from where you are now, beginning with the very home you live in. Start today, even if it's just with one small drawer. The first step is always the hardest, but afterward you will find yourself feeling a little lighter each time, a little brighter each day. And your soul, just like your living space, will begin to shine.